Greetings and salutations. My name is OJ as always, and welcome to what will be a video of me blabbering about one of my favourite games ever made, Signalis. Now, why am I talking about Signalis on a random day of a random year? Well, that's because today, as of the time of me recording this, that being the 27th of October, is actually the 3rd anniversary of this game's release. Now, I must admit, to lay out a bit of groundwork, I only recently played this game. And by recently, I mean about like 4 months ago. 4 months ago? It was in July of this year. I'd seen things about this game before, I'd heard very good things about this game before, yet I just never decided to dip my toe into the pool per se, mostly due to the fact that I am a bit of a wuss and I kind of struggle to handle horror games sometimes. Well, I say that, but horror games are kind of a weird one for me, where once I make that first step, like I jump the first hurdle, I'll be fine. There's no problems from that point forward. Like, I bought Signalis and it kind of just sat in my inventory on Steam for like a week, and then I was like, no, I'm going to play this game, I'm going to play it right now, and you know what, I'm really damn glad I did, because this game is genuinely just a masterpiece. I have got no other word for it. I love this game very much dearly, even if I don't fully understand it, but that is besides the point. And just to pre-warn someone, or maybe people who have not played the game themselves, go play it. It's usually very cheap, like it is more than worth your money. Like, this game is absolutely incredible, and the reason I'm stressing for you to go buy it and go play it yourself is because this video is going to contain spoilers galore. There's going to be spoilers for everything, from gameplay to artwork to story. I am going to spoil everything because I want to blabber about this game like the autistic little dickhead that I am, because it's been on my mind and I just want to talk about it, and what better time to talk about it than its literal anniversary. So yeah, please do know this video will contain massive spoilers for every aspect of the game, and go buy it. If you haven't played it, go buy it. I'm stressing this. But just to give you guys a bit of structure, because I mean, no one really wants to listen to incoherent blabbering for like an hour. I'm going to break this video down into 3 main pillars, that being the Signalis' gameplay, its aesthetics, and then its story, in that order. So, with all of that said and all of that preamble out of the way, let's talk about Signalis, and to start off with, its gameplay. Now, the reason I'm talking about gameplay first is because, well, I believe it's probably the segment I'll have the least to say on. Not to say that the gameplay is any way, shape or form bad. I actually really like some aspects of Signalis' gameplay, mostly due to the fact that I'm relatively fond of survival horrors. Not to say like I'm an expert or anything. I mean, going into Signalis, the only kind of real experience I had with a proper survival horror was Resident Evil 2's remake. Now, in RE2's remake, you had like, what, I believe 8 slots to begin with, and it eventually gets to 16, and that's quite a large inventory size for a survival horror, at least now, in my experience. Of like, you have enough room for all the guns you might need, all the ammo you might need, all the healables, key items, etc. Now, Signalis is completely different because it restricts you to 6 slots, and you are only allowed 6 slots for the entire damn game. Now, this is both a incredibly frustrating move, but an incredibly genius move. I love the 6 slot system. I love how restrictive and how harsh it really is. Like, you literally cannot do anything without having to I know some may get annoyed at the idea of like, oh, here's a key item that's shown up in my travels. I literally can't carry it because, well, my inventory's full. And I will admit, that is the one thing I kind of wish this game had. The ability to kind of just drop your items on the ground in some way, shape, or form. Like, because you can't drop your items. I feel like that's kind of a weird decision. I know in most other survival horrors you can't really drop your items, at least not to my knowledge, right? I mean, I think... No, I don't think there's any... I haven't played any where you can drop your items, right? I do think Signalis would have benefited from that. That's like the one issue I have with the gameplay. Like, there are so many times where I'm like, wow, because I decided to take some extra ammo into a room with like 20 enemies, I don't have enough room to pick up this key item that I found. Ah boy, now time for me to run all the way back to the safe room, place all the items I have in the box, and then run all the way back, and then maybe some enemies decide to revive themselves on the way there, and okay, I get it, but can't I just drop my gun on the floor? That would be way easier, but then again, that's probably why. That's probably why they did that, because they don't want to make it too easy. And admittedly, that 6-slot system is... I just cannot stress enough how much I like it, because it just creates so many moments where I am stressed. I am actually physically stressed out because I am just limited. Like, this game is so punishing with how its inventory system works and how much of an item you get. Like, there were many times where I just didn't have any ammo. I just straight up had nothing to fight back with. I had to just run. And I think that is great. I think that is perfect. This game at points, or for most of its like playthrough, had me on edge all the time, stressed out all the time. And I know that, like, to most normal people that would sound bad, but this is what I'm looking for from a survival horror. I'm looking to be stressed out, on edge, to think about what I'm doing, where I'm doing it, how much of an item I have, how much inventory space I have. Like, I mentioned the words. They're really, really difficult, aren't they? This game does have a few puzzles in it. And one of my favourite puzzles, which funny enough, I didn't actually manage to capture footage of, like, all the background gameplay you're seeing is my own. And the only thing I forgot to record was actually taking the 6 plates. I think they were plates. Either way, the puzzle near the end of the game, the final 6 keys that you have to collect and then put in the door. I actually forgot to capture the footage of me taking the keys to the door. And I hate that I didn't capture it, because that's perfect for what I'm just about to say. The 6 inventory system created probably one of my favourite moments in this game, which is with that puzzle that I just mentioned. You need 6 plates to open the door near the end of the game, and I decided to put all of my guns, all of my healables, into the box, or the safe room box, and just take all 6 keys at once and just sprint. And I cannot stress how much I was stressed. Like, the feeling of not having any way to defend yourself or any way to heal yourself in case you get attacked is just unreal. And I know that's a situation I put myself in, but like, that was so, like, my heart was literally racing. I'm running through these rooms, running past these enemies, and I know that I can't fight back. I literally can't do anything. So I put all 6 keys in the door, and now it's a case of going through all of that again, but now I actually have nothing. There is nothing in my inventory, and I need to make it all the way back to the safe room just to get, like, you know, all of my guns back. But the thing is, that situation, that, like, enthralling moment that I went through, wouldn't have happened if Signalis had more than 6 slots, because I would have been able to maybe take a gun with me whilst I transport 3 of the keys, and then go back and transport the next 3 of the keys. Or maybe it was like Resident Evil 2's remake, where you have like 12, 16 slots. I would have just been able to take all the keys with me. The 6-slot system is so good and so cool. It creates so much, like, tension. It adds layers of tension onto what already is quite a tense, sort of stressful game. A lot of the environments in the game are very cramped, very tight, and it results in you being kind of face to face with the enemies of the game, who admittedly I do wish had a bit more variety. A lot of them are just kind of slow, lumbering melee enemies, and I do think that's a little bit boring. Like, the most unique enemy in the game for me was probably the one with the shield. I don't remember what replica that is, but the one with the shield, that one, and the baton, that was probably the most unique enemy to me. Well, no, actually, I just lied right out my arse then. It's the weird one. I don't know what it was. The one with a really large head that forces you to use the radio. The radio. The radio is an interesting mechanic. I didn't really find too much use of it outside of puzzles. It's fun to use for puzzles. I liked tuning it to obviously different frequencies to figure out this, that, and the other. But like, the coolest thing with the radio is that enemy. I do not remember its name. Again, it's the one with the weird large head that makes all the flickering stuff appear on the screen. Like, being able to, or being forced to kind of like tune the frequency to the right ones to get rid of that enemy is really cool. And I'm actually really upset that when I looked at the wiki, I found out you could just shoot it. I didn't know that. I actually thought there was no way to kill it normally, but I mean, that actually is kind of interesting, right? That's kind of what they wanted you to do. They wanted you to, you know, like, save your ammo and use the radio to tune yourself to its frequencies to get rid of it. That's obviously what the intention behind that enemy was. So me not knowing, or me never actually shooting it, it's kind of interesting, right? It's kind of a cool thing. It's a cool way to use a mechanic that you've been, shown how to use in the radio, and then use it in a offensive manner. Like, I think that's cool. I actually think that's really cool. And I've only now just realized that there is actually an enemy type besides the one with the shields that is kind of unique, and that's the miners. They are a kind of mini boss, so, well, the first time you're introduced to a miner is, well, a boss fight, and the only other time it shows up is in a room where you don't really need to fight it. It's that one room with a wooden doll in it, and there's like 20 billion enemies in there, and you kind of have to sneak through. There is a miner in there, and they're unique in the fact that they are, like a ranged enemy. They actually try to shoot you, which, is the difference that I was kind of looking for. But yeah, the majority of the enemies in the game are, simple, like slumbering melee enemies. And I mean, that's fine, but they are a bit boring. I don't like the ones that come out of the vents. They always piss me off because they always show up. Like, they come out the floor when I think it's least useful. They are always there to annoy me, or they're in a room that I just do not want them to be in. They are infuriating. But like, either way, gameplay wise, I think Signalis is a really good sort of standard for it's like a more harsh survival horror game. At least in my experience from some of the, I know most people wouldn't consider like Resident Evil 3 and 4's remakes to be survival horror games, but they kind of follow similar principles, but those games are obviously more action-y, and as a result they have more slots so you can have more guns. But I do think if you want the survival in the survival horror name, Signalis does it like as best as it could possibly be. Like, it genuinely feels like I'm fighting for my survival. Like, I am looking at my ammo counts and thinking, damn, is it actually worth shooting this enemy? Like, there are many, many times where I've let myself get hit because I want to preserve my ammo. I think that is fantastic. I think that is a fantastic use of the mechanics of a survival horror to put more pressure, more fear on the player. I just think that is fantastic. Admittedly though, all of those praise doesn't really come up in the final boss fight of the game, who I don't really like, mostly due to the game not particularly warning me that, I would naturally need to take in every single gun I had in my inventory. Like, the final boss, I actually failed it like 2 times because I just didn't bring enough, if that makes sense. Like, I brought the pistol, I brought the shotgun, and I brought the rifle, and it's like, that was the wrong combination of weapons, so screw you, man, you're gonna run out of ammo. Like, I actually ran out of ammo in one of my attempts on the boss, and I was just like, it was just kind of annoying. Like, I don't know if I was just missing something, or, I mean, I eventually did do it, obviously. I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't do it, but the final boss of the game, I find fine. They're a little bit annoying to beat. I don't know why I'm, like, being obscure. I said this video is gonna have spoilers. Falk, she's kind of annoying to fight. I'm gonna be completely honest. I do like that she's got a unique kill mechanism. Like, you can't just shoot her and kill her, and that's that. You do have to use, like, the weird spears. But the spears take up an inventory slot, and sometimes I just wouldn't have the slot for it. Like, that's an example of the 6 inventory slots and how, like, firm they are on it becoming a nuisance. Because the thing is, when you pick up the spear and you use it, it immediately gets removed out of your inventory. So why does it need to take up a slot? Why can't it just be an item that you pick up momentarily and then use? Why does it have to play by the rules? This is the final boss fight, man. Why is this playing by the rules of the 6 inventory slots? Because it just makes it frustrating. It makes it so I have to leave a slot open of my already limited slots for the final boss fight of the game. And say I pick the wrong weapon combination to bring into the final boss, then I am screwed because they just will not give me the ammo I need. Like, there were many times where they're just like, oh, here's 10mm ammo. Brother, I didn't bring the pistol. I did not bring the pistol. Like, on my 3rd attempt, I think my choice of weaponry was like the 2 you get at the beginning, which is the pistol and the shotgun. Like, I just settled on that and called it a day. Like, it would have been lovely to carry the rifle or something in there for, like the big chunk of burst damage, but no, I need to leave the slot open for the spear, so, I mean, it's annoying, right? But that is kind of a good use of the, like, yeah, it's annoying, but it does kind of use the system well. Like, it forces you to actually think about what you're bringing in. But the thing is, you're not pre-warned of that before the boss fight. They don't say, oh, like, leave a slot open. At least I don't remember them saying, like, leave a slot open. If they do, I'm sure someone will correct me. But, like, the final boss is good, but it's also really annoying at the same time because I wasn't, like, prepared for it, or the game didn't, like, prepare me properly for it. Like, I remember there being a warning, and I was like, oh, this is the end of the game. Okay, I'm going to bring every gun I have. And then I quickly realized, oh, shit, I need a free inventory slot for the spear. Well, that would have been nice to know, wouldn't it? But yeah, either way. I think the gameplay of Signalis, outside of my qualms with Falk at the end of the game, is really fantastic. A lot of the puzzles, I feel like I'm not particularly good at puzzles, I must admit. I'm not particularly very smart. I did have to look up the solutions to one or two puzzles, but my favorite puzzle in the game, probably by far, is the tarot card one, where you have to line up, or you have to put all of the tarot cards in the correct spot, and you have to use like that dark light to show which ones go where. And you had all these clues scattered around the area you were in, and that was not a sentence. You had a bunch of clues scattered in the area you were in. There we go, said it properly. And those kind of just give you hints at what cards go in what segments and what planets associate with what cards. I found that puzzle fascinating, mostly due to the fact that I was actually able to beat it on my own. I felt really proud of myself for actually managing to figure out like where what cards went. And I like that. I like that puzzle a lot. That puzzle makes me happy. I felt very proud of myself for doing that puzzle. I also quite like the one with the weird 3D scanner where you could like see inside of objects. I don't fully remember what that puzzle led to, but I did like that mechanic. I did think it was quite cool. But yeah, the tarot card puzzle was really lovely. When it comes to puzzles, the only issue I have is like the reuse of the multi-key door puzzle. Like, I get the idea, right? There's a door, you need multiple keys to get through it, but they do it like twice. They do it near the beginning of the game in like the medical wing, and they do it again near the end of the game towards the final area. Like, I reuse of that puzzle, I'm not like super big on it, but it was fun enough. As I said, that moment where I had to carry all 6 keys simultaneously to the final door, that was a really cool moment for me. So maybe I'm being too harsh on that second door, because it did result in a really, really cool moment. But yeah, gameplay-wise, I think Signalis is fantastic. I think the survival in the survival horror aspect is very much firmly put forward, first and foremost, and I really enjoyed that, how stressed out I was just all the time, because I was thinking about every little thing I was doing. I was thinking about where I was going, when I was going, what I had on me, what I didn't have on me. I just love that sort of shit. And as I said, I'm not really the smartest in the room, but the puzzles were pretty fun. I really like the tarot card one, again. But with all of that said, I would like to now move on to the second pillar I mentioned earlier, that being the aesthetics of the game, which includes stuff like, artwork, music, character designs, etc., etc. Now, as I said, aesthetics cover things such as artwork, graphics, music, etc. So let's start with, what you're going to be looking at like 90% of the time, which is the actual graphics of the game. From what I can tell, I may be a bit wrong on this. Sometimes I get my errors mixed up, but for the most part, I would say that Signalis gameplay-wise, like the gameplay aesthetics when you're walking around, etc., etc., is attempting to kind of recreate like a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 aesthetic, that kind of like square, kind of blocky look. A lot of the models just don't have faces. A lot of the models just don't have faces, which is very akin to these, older PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 games, which, in the same vein, didn't have many faces. A good example is the original Resident Evil, which, of course, as I have mentioned many a time, Signalis does seem to take a lot of inspiration from Resident Evil 1 and 2. The originals, I mean, not the remakes. And those two games do also, I was going to say suffer, but no, they do both have the quality of having, like no faces on the character models and having relatively like square designs. But that's not a problem to me. I actually really like that kind of blocky PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 aesthetic. I know it's kind of getting a little overused. A lot of games, or indie games specifically, are kind of using that for their games. Like another one that kind of pops into my mind is like Mouthwashing. That had a sort of similar PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 blocky aesthetic to it. And that game also was very aesthetically gorgeous. That's the thing. the look of the graphics doesn't really matter to me. Like, I don't really care that it looks like a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 game, when the actual aesthetics of the world are just gorgeous. When it comes to me, personally, I prefer a game with good art direction to one with good graphics. Like, The Last of Us could, I don't know, The Last of Us is a generic example, because it's one of those games that go for, like, hyper-realism, and in a sense, that is its art direction, and it is impressive. However, for someone like myself, if you put two games in front of me, Last of Us with its super-duper realistic, like, you can see every mole on Joel's face, like, and then you put Hi-Fi Rush with its cartoony, like, you know, Saturday morning cartoon look, I'm going to jump to Hi-Fi Rush immediately. Like, I am one who prefers more unique, more different art styles to, you know, realism. Like, that's why funny enough, I've never played The Last of Us. Like, I've never played it. That's mostly due to me not owning a PlayStation 4, but that's besides the point, you know. I know it's on PC, but it's, like, really expensive. You get the idea. Like, The Last of Us does have good art direction, especially when it comes to its creature designs. I am very much in love with the clickers. I love the fungal designs of those creatures. So, on that front, they're really good at their stuff, but for the most part, the game does try to go for, like, you know, hyper-realism, and that can work. That works. Not every story needs hyper-realism, but not every story needs the aesthetics of Signalis, which is the PlayStation 1 look that most of the in-game models have. But, of course, I'm sure as you know, the majority of my praise for the aesthetics of Signalis come from its pixel art. Its pixel art is on another level. The cutscenes in this game, like the proper ones with, you know, actual cutscene stuff, is just unbelievably gorgeous. Like, any cutscene involving Adler is just insane. Like, that cutscene where you see, like, the corrupted version of him, where all of his skin is, like, flayed off or whatever. Oh my god, the pixel work on that is insane. This is pixel art. What do you mean? This is pixel art. This looks like, you know, like hand-drawn stuff, but it's not. It's pixels. It's so many pixels that it results in it looking like it's been hand-drawn. And I think that is just, I can't sing my praises for stuff like that high enough. Like, some of the visuals in this game, when it comes to, like, those big cutscenes, are just insane. I really love, like, some of the ending cutscene. I know I'll get to discussing the endings properly when we talk about the story, but the Leave ending, as bad as I think that ending is just in general for obvious reasons, the cutscene for that is really, really pretty. Like, the scene of, like, Elster's face just kind of drooping a little, her eyebrows kind of just she just looks sad, and then she just falls and dies. But that single shot before she falls, where it's just the blue background and her just looking relatively sorrowful, it's just gorgeous. That is some gorgeous pixel artwork. Any cutscene involving Ariane is just amazing to look at as well. All of the pixel cutscenes with her in it are just gorgeous as well. Like, the thing is, though, when I say they're gorgeous, there is a little thing I have to put on the side of that. I know there's a video, I don't remember who it was by, it's a relatively big video on Signalis, and it was Horrifically Beautiful, I believe that was the name of it. I accidentally copied the title, and I didn't actually realise that when I made my thumbnail way back when, because I made the thumbnail not too long after I finished the game, and I was planning to, I kind of just hesitated, and, well, not hesitated, but, like, I waited my time out to do this video, and there's no other way to say it, really. That guy who made the really big video on Signalis, again, I don't remember who it was, but the title was Horrifically Beautiful, and I think that is the perfect way to describe this game, aesthetically. Like, it is both horrific in all sorts of ways, through body horror and, like, diplomatic horror. Like, the government system in this world that Signalis has seems to be very, bad, all things considered, relatively firm, like iron grasp kind of bad. But the aesthetics of that environment, of that kind of company, are, like, really pretty, but in a horrific manner. Like, a lot of the enemy designs are really damn horrific. Like, my personal favorite, probably not to too many people's surprise, is the Storch. The Storches are a horrific looking thing. Just this weird, tall, bird-like creature. But the thing is, I think the most interesting thing about the Storch I'll get into this obviously when I talk about the disease that infected all the replicas in the story segment, but the Storches, when infected with this disease, obviously, like many of the other replicas, transform. And the Storches are so interesting to me because that big, like, beak thing they have in their, like, disfigured, transformed states is their leg. That's their leg. They have their leg is on their head. Their leg is their face. Like, what? That's horrific. But that's so cool. Like, that's horrific in all sorts of manners and descriptions. But that is such a cool design for an enemy. Like, I really as well love the, I know I mentioned them earlier, the miner. When the miner gets like stunned and they kind of enter that stunned state where they fall on their knees, just seeing all of that weird oxidized blood or whatever the fluid is. It's not blood, it's something else. I don't remember the name of it right now, but like just seeing all that liquid just pour from the hole in their face where their face would be, where that replica's kind of human-esque face was once, is just horrific. It's insane, actually. I really, like, it's both horrific to look at, but beautiful. And a lot of the horrific beauty mostly comes from a lot of the stuff in relation to the story and Ariane and Elster. But, like, I mean, just all of the character designs in this game are just fantastic. Like, Falk's is a personal highlight for mine. I really like Falk's design. Just this unbelievably tall replica who, by the end of the game, per her boss fight in her corrupted form, literally transforms into a god of some kind. The multiple ringed, like, halo behind her head and the floating spears that follow her wherever she moves is a really cool bit of, like, iconography. I really like Falk's design. As I mentioned earlier, Adler's look in that cutscene where he's just, like, flesh and bone is just insane. Like, all of the replica designs are relatively simple, all things considered. They are kind of all characterized by black bodysuits or some sort of white armor. It's one of the two. It's either black bodysuit or white armor, and they all have, like, you know, like their robotic features on their faces with the little lines across the noses and stuff like that. But it's like they are all so cool to look at. Like, they are all so uniquely designed that I can tell them apart from just seeing, like, the single image of them. I can tell what Falk is. I can tell the difference between Falk and Elster. I can tell the difference between Elster and a Storch. I can tell the difference between Elster and, what is it, a Eula? I think that's the name of it. I'm going to pull up the replica unit thing right here, right now. Yeah, a Eule. It's E-U-L-E. I think that's how you say that. Like, they're all so uniquely designed, and I find it incredibly interesting that a lot of the, like, corrupted replicas have qualities from their, you know, assigned jobs as their kind of offensive, like, performances in their, you know, forms. Like, for example, as I mentioned, the Eula was kind of a cooking cutlery kind of replica. So as a result, a lot of them are, you know, like, chefs, or some of them were nurses as well. So a lot of them looked very akin to, like, the Silent Hill nurses. And I think that's a really cool idea, where you take what these, like, robots or replicas were designed for and then use it as the offensive tool. Like that one with the big head that, like, you have to use the radio to beat. That replica had something to do with, obviously, controlling mass amounts of replicas, being like a intelligence agency on legs. So having it be this weird, big-headed creature that messes with your signals and damages you psychologically is a really cool idea. It's a really cool kind of aesthetic choice. And just all the environments are just insane to look at. I will admit, I do prefer the beginning parts of the game more than the latter parts. I like the more industrial kind of medical facilities and government bases kind of look to the areas that you end up in later on. Like, the latter part of the game just being one big Silent Hill reference is cool, but I think that aesthetic has kind of worn itself thin, just in my personal opinion, or in my personal experience. It does look very cool, like all of the rusted schoolhouse is creepy. Like, do not get me wrong, the rusted schoolhouse look of Nowhere, if I remember, I think that's what it's called. Like, that does look really creepy, does look really cool. As I mentioned, a lot of the enemies get, like, redesigns in that area, and they end up looking more Silent Hill-esque, and that does look great, but I'm going to be honest, I do kind of like the aesthetics of the kind of militaristic base, the sort of dorms. The dorm area is a special place for me. I really like the dorm area. I like that we can actually see in the environment the kind of just everything falling apart. Like, you can actually see it in the environment itself. You can see that some of the elevators are just have bodies in them piled up, presumably like dead replicas or dead gestalts that have just been left there in the elevator clogging it up, or some of the dorms just being tossed and turned. You can see attempts of struggle, and like some of the dorms have like, you know, like barricades on the doors, or there's a barricade in one of the halls, there's like a barricade of a bunch of like cabinets and stuff, which show that there was like, you know, struggle and fights. And we know from like a document from the Storches that from a Storch that she destroyed a music box, and that just sent an entire segment of replicas into like corruption even quicker. So like that single action caused that entire area, the dorms, to just fall apart even quicker. Like stuff like that is just cool. You can, but the thing is, you can find that music box with a knife stabbed in it. So you read that note, and then you find the music box with the knife in it. It's just like you can actually see the struggles and like the stuff in the environment. I think that's just fantastic. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't end this segment off by talking about the music of the game. The music of the game is very much like the actual game itself. There is a lot of sorrow in the music. I wish I could play some of it for you, but due to YouTube's copyright laws and, you know, me being bound to the rules of copyright, I don't think I can. But the entire soundtrack is available on Spotify, and I wouldn't say it's like sort of something you can just casually listen to. A lot of the music is very hard, industrial. A lot of the time it does end up becoming sort of just sound, and I do think that really does work. Like the boss fight theme for the miner is kind of a memorable one for me, because it's just loud, it sounds metallic, it sounds like just the miner trying to move around in that giant robotic-esque suit. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Ariane's theme, which is easily, or at least in my opinion, the most beautiful piece in the entire game. Not only for, you know, the sole existence of Ariane's theme in itself, but more importantly, that Falk's theme is a reversed version of Ariane's theme, which is an excellent way of using music to tell the story that you have already shown the player. Like, I will obviously go into it a little bit more later, but Falk, due to some memory related stuff, does believe that she has Ariane's, or she has like Ariane's memories inside of her head, and it's kind of like she is Ariane. Like near the end of the game, she thinks she is Ariane in a way, but she isn't. So having Ariane's theme play and then have Falk's theme be a reversed version of Ariane's theme is just like a genius way to use that plot point and then tell it musically. I think that's a genius idea. And a lot of the just kind of general like ambient themes, or ambient, that's not how you say that, ambient themes are really fantastic as well. They all have this just sorrow. There's this underlying wave of sorrow behind everything in the game. Every single little bit of it is, there's just, everywhere you look, there's just sorrow, there's just sadness, there's just depression in just some way, shape or form. And the music really sells that point. Like, and when things are, you know, more horrific, more scary, more intense, the music does also shift to be like that as well. It can get really loud, very oppressive at times, and that really, really works for me. Like, whenever, as I mentioned earlier, those enemies that come out of the vents from the floor, they always annoy me, but I will give them props, as every time they show up, there's just this loud, metallic, droning song that immediately plays to tell me that they're there and I should be scared. And like, that works. It puts like this sort of loud, industrial-esque music puts the pressure on me even further than just the existence of the enemy does on its own. And I think that's a really cool way to use music. It's not just like, just play this music when specific thing happen. It like, it kind of, it's background noise, but it fits and kind of emphasizes. It's like an emphasis thing, right? Like, I'm already stressed, I'm already scared of this enemy in front of me, but the music puts more emphasis on it, and it forces that emotion into me even further. I think that's a really interesting way to use music. But yeah, the music of the game is really fantastic. Lots of the sorrowful tracks are usually my favorite. The sort of more instrumental, calmer sounding ones usually click quite a lot with me. Usually, and they make you feel things. That's the thing. Like, music for me, is kind of an odd one. I can obviously feel things from music, but like Signalis really hits it home. Like the feeling you can hear in just every note of any of their songs, like it's just incredible work. I really cannot sing my high praises enough, even if I'm not like, you know, super qualified. I'm not a music person. A lot of the music I listen to in my free time is just from video games. It's not like I don't have like a degree in analyzing music, but I can tell you when something scratches my brain and sounds good, and this is one of those cases. But with all of that said, all of the aesthetics done, all of my high praises for the aesthetics of Signalis high said and done, I would like to now move on to probably what is going to be the longest segment. Probably, maybe, potentially. And it's also the segment I am the most confused on. This is very much like the story of Signalis, which is what I'm about to discuss, is a very confusing, not a mess, but it's confusing to me. I say that, but I don't have a gist. Either way, I'm getting off track. Let's move on to talking about the story. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't think I'm really smart enough to fully explain Signalis' story. If you're looking for someone to give you like the in-depth breakdown of what everything means, I am not the one, because I'm probably just as confused as you are. For the most part, Signalis' story, I wouldn't say goes over my head, but I certainly do get confused by it at times. Most of my confusion comes from the sort of climax, the fake ending of the game, where everything kind of now switches up and we get revealed to time loops and what is real, what is not. That sort of blurred, a lot of the blurred lines in the game really do get to me, and I do struggle to see what is real and what isn't, at least in my experience, of course, because this is, you know, my personal expression and how I feel about the game. But despite that fact, despite not really understanding a lot of what goes on, I really do like mostly the messages of the game. Although the story to me may not be completely coherent and I may not fully understand it, which may be a case of just me not being like, it's going to sound weird to say, but not cultured enough. Per discussions I've seen online and other videos that I've watched, a lot of the story of Signalis shares similarities to a book that appears, you know, regularly throughout the game, that being The King in Yellow, which is a real book and, as I just mentioned, has a lot of ties and similarities to the story of Signalis. Well, I've never read that book. I don't know anything about that book. A lot of the paintings in the game are real paintings, but I don't know the history behind these paintings. I'm not cultured in that kind of manner. So a lot of my experience, for those who want a point of reference, has to do with video games. Almost all of my media experience is through video games. It's all I've ever done, and I'm sure when I die and they dissect me, they'll see that part of my veins is just dedicated to video games. Part of my brain will just have the word video games written across it somehow. But like, even despite that fact of me not understanding a lot of the more cultural references and the such, I really do enjoy the ideas of the story. I don't know if I fully understand it and really get it, but I think a lot of it comes down to the endings of the game, which of course I'll discuss in more detail in a second, but like, before we get to the endings, of course, we need to talk about how we actually get there. And the idea, to kind of break it down into its literal simplest forms, is that you play as Elster. Initially, you are looking for a woman known as Alina Seal, who turns out to not actually be the lover you are looking for, but instead you are looking for Ariane Young. Now, why does that Alina Seal woman exist? It's a good question. And I think the idea is that, of course, per this, because the game eventually reveals that a lot of the stuff that you have been doing has been done before, that this is kind of like a loop that is constantly going on and on and on, and whether it's real or not is kind of a big question. Some people have tried to speculate that a lot of the enemies you fight in the game aren't real. I don't think that's the case, as there's a few documents that say like, oh, there's this weird infection going around amongst the replicas that are affecting them, which implies that that does obviously exist in the real world, but that's kind of the thing with Signalis. A lot of the lines do get blurred a lot by what is real, what is not, what is a dream, what isn't, what is like created from Ariane's memories and design, or what isn't. Like, do we, like, a lot of the enemies, are they there because Ariane decided for them to be there? Are they there because of an actual infection that had gone spreading around? Like, the infection does exist. I just mentioned that. There was a document in the game that you can find that specifies it, like, you know, going around and affecting, you know, people. So that does exist. These weird, deformed replicas exist. They are real. But what is and isn't real is kind of a blurred line. Like, when we get to Nowhere, is that actually real? Probably not. I don't think Nowhere as a place is a thing, mostly due to, well, its name and the contents of Nowhere. A lot of the stuff in it is the Silent Hill, weird, disfigured, distorted schoolhouse place, and like, that's all very confusing. Like, the reveal that obviously the entire thing is kind of like a loop and this has been done before by different Elster units is kind of a shock, but it does kind of raise a lot of questions. Like, as I mentioned earlier, Alina Seal is a character who for the most part doesn't serve much of a purpose. She's kind of just an existing, she's like a walking misdirection, because the lover that she had was a different Elster. You are 512, whereas she probably was in love with S2301, which to our knowledge, or judging from her place in the timeline, is the first Elster that entered through the red gate that you see and kind of started these loops and started gaining the memories of you, Elster 512. Because the 512 is the one that spent her time on the Penrose, the spaceship, with Ariane, before, of course, the two of them were kind of just destined to die. That, like, the replicas are just such an interesting concept. Like, conceptually, there's so much cool stuff in this game. I really love all of the details about the replicas, how you can read what their, like, deficiencies are and what their benefits are, and they have, like, what are described as fetish objects, which are, like, objects that they can attach themselves to kind of calm themselves down. They have stuff known as personality degradation, where being exposed to unusual stimuli or things that aren't natural to them can cause them to kind of break down and become sort of, what would you call it, like what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of infected in a way? Not really infected, because that obviously implies, you know, like, for a point of reference, Elster 512, the one that was on the ship with Ariane, was exposed to music, exposed to movies, artwork, dance, things that the Elster units aren't meant to be exposed to. And that initial Elster unit, the 512 one, is obviously the one that went on to be the blueprint for every other Elster unit. But because of her exposure to dance, music, and all of these other sort of unnatural stimuli, it caused all the other Elster units to become sort of corrupted or just not good enough. They were just kind of wrong in a way. And I think that's a really interesting way to sort of describe the world of Signalis, because the world of Signalis is fascinating. It's a very much kind of like a government that wants to rule by iron fist, and there's a lot of war references and stuff that I don't really fully understand again, but the idea that things like artwork, music, and movies are all kind of deemed as unnatural and wrong is an interesting idea. Like, for example, Ariane is, you know, sent off on the Penrose to kind of like beat the love of art out of her, which is a very, very interesting kind of way of putting it. Like, that's a very interesting decision. And I think, like, just specifically that idea of like this government that, or city, country, whatever you want to call it, that wants to kind of beat the love of the arts out of you is interesting. And I like that this game kind of exists as a counterpoint to it, that you should enjoy the arts, you should enjoy books, films, movies, games, etc. I've always been a proprietor of, you know, loving artwork. I may not understand, I may not read books, I may not watch shows, I may not watch movies, but that doesn't make those forms of art, those forms of media, any less valuable than my beloved video games, which I spend all of my life on. Like, some of the art pieces that are shown in this game have some form of, like, history, a lot of cultural relevance. As I said, the King in Yellow plays, you know, a big part, even if I didn't actually know that until after I'd finished the game. So there's a lot of cultural stuff in here, a lot of, you know, dissections of the arts. And I like that. I really do. I really like that message that you should care about the arts. And even if, you know, people or governments or environments try to beat that love of the arts out of you, you should not let it kind of get to you. You shouldn't let it win. And that is a very big message of the game. And it also links into the other big message of the game, the overlying theme, at least in my opinion, and that's love. But what do I mean by love? I mean the concept. The concept of love permeates almost everything in this game, in some way, shape, or form. For example, Issa, or Isolde Ito. She is a character that you meet and is consistently there, here and there, and has a story that runs kind of perpendicular to Elster's story. And hers is about her love for her sister and attempting to find her. And as a result, by the end of it all, Isolde's love for her sister and want to kind of help and save her sister, even if it is futile, just results in her death. Like, a lot of the love that these characters have for one another kind of end up with them dead in some way, shape, or form. Adler has, at points, confessed his love for Falk. He respects her and loves her deeply. On what kind of level, whether that be romantic or platonic, I'm not fully sure, but a lot of the love for Falk and a lot of the love that he has for her ideals kind of pushes him to do what he does. It pushes him to almost kill Issa. It pushes him to, well, stab Elster in the eye, practically dooming her to her death. Like, a lot of the stuff Adler does is through his love of Falk, and a lot of the stuff that Falk does is through her misplaced memories of Ariane and Elster and her love for Elster and Ariane kind of respectively, because Falk has her memories kind of merged and replaced by Ariane's. I mean, it's even shown visually. Like, if you look at the artwork for Falk and then look at the artwork for Ariane, they are literally 1-to-1. Like, there is a very clear point of this, they are kind of merged into one. Maybe not Falk into Ariane, but definitely Ariane into Falk. Like, Falk has Ariane's memories. And she even says to Elster before the final boss fight starts is that she'll never love us. But, like, that again, Elster. Elster is literally part of the club of I love my wife or searching for my wife club. She's in that little group, and all of what she does, everything, literally everything, every step that you take, every bullet that you fire, every puzzle that you solve is for the love of Ariane, even if you don't understand that to begin with, even if you think it's someone else to begin with. And I think that is a fascinating idea. And I think the most interesting part is that even despite how depressing, how like horrific this game can get, like the endings, you know, whilst we're coming up to it, let's talk about the endings. The leave ending is terrible because it does not really solidify any of the kind of messages of the game. It is kind of just the I give up ending. I don't see really how it is good in any way, shape, or form. Ariane is kind of just doomed to suffer in the cryopod forever because Elster never even lets her out, never even gets into the ship, and Elster just dies in the middle of Nowheresville with God knows how many regrets on her soul. The leave ending, in my opinion, is the worst one, and although some may see it as like a sort of freeing thing, like she's freeing herself from the shackles of love, I don't think that's the message that this game wants. And considering how the game kind of calculates what endings you get, this is definitely the one where because for those who don't know, the way the game calculates endings on like what ending you get, outside of the secret one, is really interesting. As you play the game, depending on what you do, you get like a score that builds up in the background, which is really interesting. Like, the way it works is like, if you just do nothing, like if you seriously just keep just doing nothing, like you just complete the game as quickly as possible, you don't really like kill many enemies, you don't really talk to many NPCs, you kind of heal yourself barely ever, like you end up getting to the point where you get different endings. Like, if you complete the game in less than 6 hours, you basically lock yourself to the leave ending, which I think is really interesting. For me, personally, I got the memory ending, which is it kind of in the middle. And if you go beyond and, you know, like kill every enemy, talk to every NPC, do all of this, heal a bunch, blah, 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 you get the promise ending, which is the third one and the quote-unquote hardest one to get. I say quote-unquote because obviously before we knew how to get the secret ending, which is known as I believe, the artifact ending, obviously, before we knew how to do that, that would have been, you know, the hardest one because you had to do all these different things and bits and pieces, but the death one, the promise ending is now probably the hardest. But either way, the leave ending you get for just not really caring. Like, by rushing through the game, by like speed running it, you're showing to the kind of code of the game that you don't care about the love of Ariane, that you don't want to do everything you can to get to her. in a sense. I feel like that's the message the game is trying to kind of tell you. And the leave ending isn't very satisfying in any way, shape or form. Elster just walks out into the middle of Nowheresville and flops dead on the ground. How is that satisfying? Now, for me, as I mentioned, I got the memory ending, which is kind of in the middle, where you talk to majority of the NPCs, you killed a few enemies, you kind of just did some stuff, but not everything you could. And I think this ending is incredibly interesting because although the way the ending works, of course, is that you go into the ship, you wake up Ariane from the cryopod, but as Elster is basically dying. Like, obviously, she has a knife in her eye, she's literally dying and succumbing to her wounds. And in her final moments, she wakes up Ariane, and Ariane in that moment says that she doesn't recognize Elster, and that she doesn't know who she is. And that is obviously really, really depressing. Like, that's really damn sad. But I find something kind of interesting about that little bit at the end, because Elster lays next to the tub, or the cryopod, and reaches out for Ariane, and Ariane still responds by holding her hand, or placing her hand on her head. It's one of the two. And I think that's really, really interesting, because despite obviously her saying that she doesn't know who Elster is, and doesn't remember her, her body instinctively knows to comfort Elster in her final moments. She knows that, like, that to me implies that even if she doesn't remember who Elster is, deep down inside of Ariane's soul, she does know. She does still remember her. Her love for Ariane, or her love for Elster, exists even if her mind doesn't remember it. I think that's that's the thing with the endings of the game. They are very much up to interpretation. How I see these endings could be completely different from how you see them. And I think that is a very cool thing for the game to have. I think there's a very unique way of telling your story by having the endings be so open-ended. To me, I really love the memory ending off of the idea that even despite everything, even despite the fact that Ariane doesn't say that she remembers Elster, deep down in her heart, she knows she does. Like, it's kind of like one of those unconscious things, where unconsciously her body knows that she loves Elster and still decides to comfort her in her final moments. And of course, you also have the final ending, that being the promise ending, in which after Elster wakes Ariane in the cryogenic pod, Ariane remembers Elster and asks her to kill her. And after being begged to, Elster decides to do just that. And having suffered critical injuries, the luster in Elster's eyes disappears and she dies next to Ariane. Now, throughout the game, you can find multiple notes from Ariane detailing her and Elster's experiences on the ship that the two of them kind of had to live on for, I believe it was 3,000 cycles before everything went up, which in sort of the terms of Signalis, I believe is like 8 years. So they spent 8 years on the ship together. And as the ship kind of fell apart, radioactive, or like a radiation, that's not a real thing, radiation leaked from the nuclear reactor, which caused Ariane to, I believe, get cancer, as well as like radiation poisoning, like real nasty stuff, the sort of stuff where you can see from her notes where she's like, every waking moment is painful. Like, for her, every single moment where her eyes are awake, where her mind is awake, just hurts all the time. She details that literally everything, from her teeth to her feet to her hands to her chest, all of it hurts, and she just really wants to be put out of her misery. But at the time, Elster malfunctions. She fails to exist because the radioactive thing from the nuclear reactor causes Elster's kind of body to break down far quicker due to the fact that she's not made up of blood. She's made up of I believe it's like the oxidation liquid of some kind, and it causes Elster to kind of collapse. It causes Elster to die before Ariane does. So as a result, Ariane cannot be put out of her misery by Elster because Elster's, already dead. And a lot of the endings, like the normal ones at least, like the leave, memory, promise, follow up on that fact of her kind of keeping the promise. Because, well, the promise is that Elster would kill Ariane to put her out of the misery that she has to suffer through every single day. Even though she was in the cryogenics pod, she was still awake. She was still feeling every inch of her body, just in pain all the time. And that's a horrific idea. Like, The memory ending does have this one big asterisk on it, where although I do like it, it's got the issue of, Ariane is still awake. Like, Elster dies, right? And Ariane is awake, but she's not awake for much longer. She will be awake and then succumb to what is probably an unimaginably painful death. Like, I mean, we're talking about radiation poisoning on top of cancer. Like, this is not good. This is very, very painful. So, of course, the promise ending, obviously, if you just look at it in a general sense, comparing or deciding off of all of the stuff that they tell you in the game, blah, 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 is probably the best ending for the both of them. Obviously, ignoring the artifact ending of the original three. The promise ending is the nicest, because the both of them then get to pass on together. Not peacefully, per se. I wouldn't, considering all they've gone through, I wouldn't say it was particularly peaceful, but it's still better than the alternative, which is Ariane having to just stay alive alone for God knows how long before her sicknesses all catch up to her in some way, shape, or form. Like, that's a really depressing way to go. So, but the thing is, across all of these, there is a constant thread of love. And I think, as I said, I think the main message of the game is love in some way, shape, or form. The promise ending happens the way it does because Elster and Ariane love each other. Their love brings them to the point where they have no other option. Like, I'm serious, they have no other options in that scenario, and they kind of both have to die, and their love for one another causes them to do that. Like, they love each other that much that they would be willing to put each other out of their miseries. And I feel like the ending, the artifact ending, is the biggest show of what love can do. Like, the way the artifact ending works, for those that may have never done it, is that you collect 3 keys, you find a 20-digit code, and in the final room before the boss fight, you can enter this code into the safe, and there is a pot of white lilies in a safe in what reveals to be Ariane's room. And then by picking up the lilies, Elster is then seen placing them at a ritual site in a dark landscape, and she and 5 other Elster units are shown dead, surrounding this sort of like ritualistic object. And then it returns at the end to show the Penrose, so the ship, with a giant red eye dangling overhead, watching Elster and Ariane dancing together in Ariane's quarters. Now, that ending, the artifact ending, and that scene of them two dancing together in the quarters, I think is the best example that despite everything that has happened, despite everything that Elster and the many other Elsters in the many other loops have gone through, or the cycles have gone through, their love for Ariane prevails every single time. Even despite all of the weird, otherworldly creatures they face, even despite maybe the hundreds of versions of Falk and Adler that they faced, they still, at the end of the day, did everything they did for love. Like, love is the overlaying message of the game, in my opinion, of course. That's the thing with Signalis, as I said. A lot of it is up to interpretation. A lot of it is what you make of it. And what I make of it is that love is the prevailing sort of message of the game. That if you love someone, you will do anything for them. And that in any scenario, literally, like, you see, I'm sure you probably played the game, and if you haven't, I feel like I've made it clear enough how just dystopian, how disgusting, how otherworldly some of the threats, like, Elster faces. Even despite all of that, she continues to move on for love. Like, the fake ending is such a genius show to me, because Elster literally loses an arm. Like, for love. Everything she does is for love. And I think that is just a beautiful message of the game. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful message. That even despite all sorts of sort of blockages and stuff, that love will prevail. And I think it actually rings even stronger when you consider the fact that Ariane and Elster are, 2 women loving each other. Like, I think the message of the game that love can prevail over everything is even more, succinct when it comes to, obviously, the pair of lesbians we're talking about. Like, the world of Signalis, at least from how they sort of deem art and music and books and stuff to be like, you know, wrong, and they try to beat it out of Ariane, I do think that's a not so subtle metaphor for the fact that Ariane is a lesbian. At least, obviously, that's what I'm presuming, of course. I mean, why wouldn't I presume that? I mean, she's literally like, she's lovingly dancing with Elster and says she loves her. Like, you get the idea. Like, Elster and Ariane are very clearly lesbians. There is no kind of discussing that part. And I think it's a not so subtle metaphor with the whole, like, oh, beat the art out of them for, you know, gayness. Like just gayness in general. Like, the idea that it isn't right, it's wrong, it should be beaten out of someone. And that even despite all of those things that stood in both Ariane and Elster's ways, the two of them still, at the end of the day, love each other and will do anything for each other. And by the end of the game, depending on what, like, that's why I think the Leave ending sucks so much, because it doesn't show their love in any way, shape, or form. It's like, the Leave ending is Elster giving up on their love, and I think that's why that ending is so horrible. Like, the memory ending is a little bit iffy because, of course, like, Elster does love Ariane, but she can't bring herself to do what she needs to do to put Ariane out of her misery, which is really sad. And the promise ending, of course, is also very sad because the both of them end up dead, but that is putting the both of them to rest. Their love allows them to, you know, come to that very hard decision. And the artifact ending, again, is a perfect example of their love. Despite everything, despite all of the cycles that Elster must have gone through to get to this point, she still did it. And now the two of them can finally just have a single moment of rest. The single moment of them two dancing together lovingly to end the game off. And I think that's really beautiful. I think that the message that love, no matter who it's with, man on man, woman on woman, man and woman, non-binary, etc., despite anything that gets in your way, you can love someone. And that love will prevail over everything. And I am very much a firm believer in that. I believe that people's love for one another can make them do anything. Literally anything. And this game has only further reaffirmed that kind of belief. And I cannot, like, I sat in front of my screen, just, even just the memory end, or the memory ending, like, that's not the best ending in the game. God knows how I would have looked if I got the artifact ending. But at the end of the memory ending, I was just sat in front of my screen watching the credits, crying my eyes out. Because I think the message of the game is that love will prevail no matter what. And I think that is a absolutely beautiful and just gorgeous message to have. Especially from a game with so much just horror. That's the thing. This game is horrific. There's so much horrific stuff in it. There's so many scary monsters and otherworldly environments and horrific things that just get put on display. And yet the message of the game is that love will prevail. And that's beautiful. That's why so many, including myself, have said that this game is beautifully horrific, or horrifically beautiful. Because even despite all of these horrors, deep below, there is a beauty to be found, and that beauty is love. And with all of that said, we've come to the end of the video. This is very much an unscripted video, very much me blabbering about something that I love for like an hour, but I do hope that you have enjoyed my blabbers, and maybe I have opened your eyes to a different interpretation of the game, because as I said, a lot of this game is up to interpretation. How you see it may be completely different from how I see it, and I'm very interested to know what your thoughts may be on just Signalis as a whole. And of course, the story will probably be the majority of the talking. But with all of that said, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please do like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, whether that be a good morning, afternoon, evening, etc. And I hope you take care, and maybe one day, including this is a message mostly to myself, but maybe one day find love.